This is True Crime Out Loud.
I'm your host, B.
And I'm your host, Jen. This week's case does not have as many pictures as most of ours do. I had a hard time finding them. So if you were watching on YouTube, my apologies.
Still a very interesting case, though, coming to you out of Forest Hills, Pennsylvania, a borough in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, with a population of around 6,500. It is located on the southwest side of Pennsylvania, and it's roughly about a 15-minute drive from Pittsburgh. And this week's case is going to center on Lynda McClelland, a 44-year-old waitress who worked at a restaurant known as the Plaza Restaurant that was located near her home. She had been dating a man named Harry Craig for around 5 years, and she had 2 grown children, both daughters, Amanda Rapaski and Marcy McClelland. Amanda, who was 24 at the time of this case, lived less than a mile away from Lynda. Amanda was married to a man named David Rapaski, and they had 2 children with a 3rd child on the way. Lynda was known as a very involved grandmother and was very excited for this 3rd grandchild to be on the way, and Lynda was also very, very close to her daughter Amanda.
The case begins on July 27th, 2000, around 11 a.m. This is when Lynda's boyfriend, Harry Craig, made an unexpected visit to Amanda's house. He asked Amanda if she had seen her mother because he couldn't find her. He had been to her house that morning and she was not there. Well, Amanda knew that her mom and Harry didn't have the best relationship and they might have been arguing, so she told him just to give Lynda some space. So after he left, Amanda tried to call her mom, but she didn't answer. So Amanda goes on about her day. Now, Amanda and Lynda would talk to each other every day. And like B said, they lived close to one another. It was less than a mile from one home to the next. By later that afternoon, Amanda had not heard from her mother. And she said she became worried between about 5 and 6 because Lynda usually called her. Now, Lynda did not have a cell phone, but if she was going to go somewhere, like to a friend's house, anywhere that she would go, she would let someone know where she was going. About 8:30 p.m. that night, after Amanda being unable to reach her mom, she goes to Lynda's home, but the door was locked. Amanda was able to get inside, and she said things seemed kind of odd. She still couldn't find her mother, so she goes to the police and reported Lynda as missing. So she reports her as a missing adult, but the police weren't alarmed. It had just been that day that she was missing, and Amanda had seen her mother the night before. Amanda said on that night before, she had gotten a call from Lynda's boyfriend, Harry. He told Amanda that her mother was not doing so well, and she was throwing things and breaking glass around the house. So Amanda and her husband, David, went to Lynda's home. Lynda shows Amanda the one glass she had broken and said Harry just blew it out of proportion because they had been arguing and she was breaking up with him. Amanda said she knew that Harry and her mom had been arguing on and off all that day before Lynda was reported missing because they had both been calling her the previous day. Amanda also tells police that her mother had been diagnosed as schizophrenic and she had a history of sexually destructive behavior when she was not on her medication. She was afraid that her mother might be in some need of serious help. Amanda goes on to tell police that her parents had divorced when she was about 12 and her father had custody because of her mom's mental health issues. But when Amanda turned 16, she moved to Pennsylvania from Indiana to live with Lynda. She said her mother was really good when she was on her medication, but it was obvious to anyone when she was not taking her medications because she would tend to hallucinate. She said when she saw her the night before about the broken glass, Lynda appeared normal, as if she'd been taking her meds. But then Amanda thinks that she could have been wrong about that. She did say that Lynda had a history of disappearing for weeks at a time. But Amanda's concern right now is her mom's safety and if she's having some kind of episode off of her medication. So the last time anyone saw Lynda was when Amanda and David had gone to her home the night before, and they left about 11 p.m. on July 26. Well, with the mental health aspect going on with this and her destructive type behavior, police go ahead that night and put out a missing persons BOLO, or be on the lookout, for Lynda McClelland.
In addition to releasing that BOLO that night, the police are going to begin investigating, see if they can figure out where Lynda is. And so the police go to Lynda's home and they find some things that to them don't seem like she just walked away. First of all, her purse and keys were in the home. They noted that some things were somewhat out of place, and Amanda said her mom was a very neat and tidy person unless she was having one of these mental health episodes, and that could explain the things that the officers saw that were out of place. The officers also observed some powdered cleanser in the sink that had not been rinsed or wiped away, and Amanda said this isn't how Lynda would have left things because of that being neat and tidy, so she would have rinsed the rest of that cleaning powder out of the sink. They also find that her home phone is missing, but the phone line is there, and that's unusual. They don't know why she would have left the home with the phone base and receiver, but again, they suspect that she may be having a mental health crisis, and during that, sometimes people do things that aren't easily explained. Amanda told police when she arrived to check on her mother that the door to the home was locked, and her mother never locked that door when she was away from home because often Amanda would have a need to get inside, or Lynda would leave the door open in the event Amanda had a need to get inside. They found no real clues to where Lynda may have gone or what may have happened to her. The forensics team then conducted a luminol search of the home, which, as any true crime person knows, that's that stuff that they spray around your house and then put a black light on top of it, and it looks for blood. And they were looking for blood, and they found none. They do get some further information that Lynda had made several threats to kill herself, and she had done this on several occasions, and she had said that she was going to jump off of the Westmoreland Bridge. And the Westmoreland Bridge is a bridge that's in the area. It's very tall, but the water below it, it has kind of like a narrow stream under it. Police think it's worth a shot to check that out, so they search the water underneath the Westmoreland Bridge for any signs that Lynda could have jumped, and they don't find anything. So the police, without any real leads, they kind of switch up their tactics and they decide to use the media to try to get Lynda's face out in public in case she wandered off in the middle of a mental health episode. Maybe she was in distress or some type of mental health crisis and was disoriented. And so they want to get her picture out there to the media so that the public can see her. Friends and family began to conduct a search in the woods near Lynda's home, and their thought process is that maybe she went for a hike in the woods and had been injured, but they don't see any signs of this. They also put up a missing person sign for Lynda. So the police are kind of narrowing down on some theories, and at this point they're theorizing that Lynda was in a mental health crisis and left on her own, or she may have been in some type of accident and passed away. She could have had a suicidal event where she went somewhere and killed herself. Or the police could also not rule out that Lynda had become the victim of foul play. They call area hospitals and check on Lynda, but there's no record. And they call surrounding law enforcement agencies, but this also turns up nothing.
So at this point, police have every theory possible because they really don't know what has happened to Lynda. But the first person And we all know who they're going to look at first. The husband. She didn't have one, but she had a 5-year boyfriend. So they talked to Harry Craig. And Harry tells them he had been dating Lynda for about 5 years. They had been arguing in increasing amount over the last few months before Lynda went missing, but it was nothing to where there was any violence. Now, Amanda knows for a fact that they'd been arguing the night before because, remember, she said that both of them had called her, and then Harry calls her about the broken glass and says Lynda's not okay. So Amanda and her husband David go over to check on Lynda. Now, Lynda's family tells the police that Harry is acting very odd. He would hold Lynda's picture and say, "I'm sorry, Lynda," and he would apologize to it. And then he would also apologize to her daughters and say, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." But when they ask him, why are you sorry? What are you apologizing for? He really didn't have an answer for that. And they even pried and tried to get information out of him because, of course, they are suspecting that Harry had something to do with it. But they still don't get any information out of him. When the police ask Harry about Lynda's whereabouts, he tells them they need to look in the woods. So this is a very odd statement from somebody who may be a person of interest, was known to be arguing with the victim, and then telling police, "Oh, you might want to look in the woods for her." Harry Craig had told the family members, and David Rapaski, Amanda's husband, had also said this along with Harry, but they told the family that they really needed to face the possibility that Lynda had committed suicide and she wasn't coming home. As usual, a family's not going to accept this until they have some type of answer. The police ask Harry if they could search his home, and he says, "Yeah, go ahead, I have nothing to hide. Look all you want." So they look, but they find nothing that shows any signs Lynda could have been killed in Harry's home. The police even say his behavior is just very unusual, but they learned that Harry had also been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and he admitted to using painkillers. So at this point, the police don't have enough to really lock him in as a strong suspect in Lynda's disappearance. That doesn't mean they quit looking at him. It just means they can't say for sure that he is a suspect.
So about a week goes by since Lynda's disappearance, and the police get a call from a possible witness who claims to have seen Lynda in a nearby county out walking on a trail. Police go to this area and they start showing Lynda's picture around, and sure enough, more than one person in that area had seen Lynda. Police narrow down their search to this general area, and they find a waitress at a local restaurant who looked just like Lynda, but it wasn't her. So they're back to square one, and they are able to determine that this waitress is, in fact, who everybody was seeing. And like I said, they're back to square one, and they really have no clues. Where do they go from here? And the answer is not really anywhere. The investigation slows way down, and about 8 months after Lynda went missing, her third grandchild was born. That was to Amanda and David. Remember, Amanda had been pregnant when all of this started to unfold. And then a year passes, and still no news on Lynda. Police continue to monitor online presence for all the people involved. They continue to call hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, and they even get in touch with other law enforcement agencies whenever an unidentified body has been found. They're basically doing anything they can to see if Lynda walked off and started a new life somewhere or has been found deceased somewhere. 2 years go by without any new clues, and the family decides to kind of step out and take a unusual approach to locating Lynda, and they hire a well-known psychic. This psychic tells them that the psychic only knows as MJ, that just those initials, MJ, came to Lynda's door and Lynda left willingly. And the psychic also says to the family that Lynda is most likely in a psychiatric hospital somewhere in Florida. Now, this gives the family hope, So they start calling all the psychiatric hospitals and psych units that they can find in Florida. However, hospitals aren't going to give the family any information. All they can do is write down the caller's name and a message, but they don't give any information as to whether or not they do have Lynda in their care.
And then it comes around to Easter morning, and that is in 2003. So we're on March 30th, 2003, and Lynda had disappeared in July of 2000. Amanda, her daughter, was getting the kids ready to go to David's mom's house for Easter festivities and sent David out to go get Easter baskets. Well, while Amanda is still getting ready, she receives a call from David's mother, and she said, "What is going on, Amanda?" And Amanda's like, "What are you talking about? I have no clue what you're even referring to." And she tells David's mom that she's home with the kids and David went to get Easter baskets. So tell her what she's talking about. So David's mom tells Amanda that David's been on the news because he's just been arrested. So let me go ahead and put this to rest for you. He was not arrested in connection with Lynda being missing. He was arrested as part of a 10-man burglary ring in Allegheny County and Westmoreland County. They had broken into 300 to 400 businesses and homes and stolen nearly $500,000 worth of cash and items. Amanda just does not believe David's mom. She is devastated. She's thinking, okay, my mom is nowhere to be found, and now my husband is going to prison. So she just doesn't even know where to turn next. Well, David, in police custody, he wants to be there for his wife. He knows she's going through some things. He wants to be there for his kids. So he agrees to help police and prosecutors capture the members of his burglary ring he's involved in. So he tells them he'll provide them with all the information that he could. And so that's what he does. So over that next year, from 2003 into 2004, he's given names and dates and information. And a year after David is arrested, his best friend, Donald Wall, who goes by DJ, and another man named Doug Hubbard are arrested in connection with this burglary ring. Now, they both realize that they're being arrested because David has been working as an informant. Doug Hubbard was livid, and he tells police, well, David has a lot more going on that he's just not telling you about. DJ, being David's best friend, says, Doug, just shut up. Just shut up. We can handle this. But police want to know what David, Doug, and DJ have going on that's more than what David's told. So they go to DJ, who they feel is probably the weakest link. And DJ started crying. He said he knew he was caught up in all of this mess, but he offered police some more information. He tells them that David is the one who killed Lynda, his own mother-in-law.
So Donald Wall, as we mentioned and known as DJ, has just revealed to police that David had killed Lynda, but he isn't exactly a rock-solid witness. This is a guy who's just been arrested on numerous burglary charges because David was informing on him. So he has a good reason to lie. And the family did not believe this. They thought that DJ was making things up about Lynda's disappearance to get back at David, and everybody just said, hey, David would have never killed his wife's mother. Besides, the last time Lynda was seen alive was when Amanda and David were at Lynda's home, and they both left together, and they both went back home just that day before she was missing. So he has a good alibi, too. DJ then ups the ante even more and reveals to police that he'll tell them where to find Lynda's body. And he does. And the police go to the location that DJ has identified, and they do find a grave. They dig up this grave and they find remains wrapped in black garbage bags sealed with duct tape. And it is later confirmed that that is the body of Lynda McClelland. An autopsy of the body reveals that Lynda died from compression to the neck or asphyxia. But this really doesn't answer what happened to Lynda, and did David have anything to do with it, or could it be that DJ did? I mean, DJ's the one that's telling them all this.
Well, DJ gives further details about David killing Lynda. DJ said he was awoken in the early morning hours of July 27th, 2000 by David. They both go to Lynda's home, where DJ saw Lynda lying on her living room floor, and she was obviously dead. He said she was naked from the waist down. Now, David tells DJ, "I need you to help me get rid of this body." But he also tells DJ what happened. David said he had gone to Lynda's house after Amanda and David had gone over there. David goes back late that night, and he had been drinking. He said one thing led to another, and he had sex with Lynda. Now remember, this is his mother-in-law. He said he and Lynda had been having an affair, and that night Lynda got mad and told David she was going to tell Amanda. David said he became enraged and he punched Lynda, which knocked her to the ground. She said she was going to call the police, so he began to strangle her with his bare hands. Once he was done strangling her, he got up, but he realized she was still alive. So he braced himself with the kitchen door frame and stepped on her neck until she was dead. He then went to get DJ for help. He took DJ to the local grocery store to buy garbage bags and duct tape, and then they went back to Lynda's house. They wrapped her in the garbage bags and then taped it up. However, by the time they get done with this, it had gotten to be daylight, and they were both afraid that somebody would see them carrying her body out of the house, so they take her down to the basement and covered her with clothing until they figure out the next step. They then go riding around looking for a spot to bury Lynda's body. They agreed on a location that was adjacent to DJ's grandmother's home, and it was at the end of a street, so it was a secluded wooded area. David left DJ there to dig the hole and said, "Hey, buddy, I need you to dig the hole. I need to go back home and be with Amanda so that she doesn't get suspicious." DJ tells police he spent a good bit of the day digging the hole, and then he walked home. That evening, David returned with the body of Lynda, wrapped in the plastic bags and taped, and they had buried Lynda in a 3-foot deep grave. DJ said David later told him that he had returned to the grave and poured ammonia around it in case police decided to use tracking dogs or sniffing dogs. So this had remained a secret between DJ and David for nearly 3 years.
So this obviously develops enough probable cause for the police to arrest David Repasky, and they do on March 17th, 2003, and they charge him with the murder of his mother-in-law, Lynda McClelland. DJ Wall testified about those events surrounding Lynda's death. He recounted the story he told police in court. But the defense points the finger at Harry Craig. If you'll remember, that was the boyfriend. They said that Harry and Lynda had an abusive and toxic relationship, and they had been fighting right before she went missing, so he was the obvious choice. The prosecution tells the jury, though, that DJ provided information and the location of the body that only someone who was there could have provided. Amanda remembered that on the day her mother was missing, David was not home that morning, but she said that that was not unusual for him to not be home in the mornings. And that's no wonder, because we know he was out committing burglaries during the night. She claims to have had no idea about his burglary ring or the murder of her mother. And when Amanda's interviewed by the television show on Investigation Discovery, she tells them that she knew David was guilty when she saw him in court and his non-reaction to DJ's testimony. She tells the show that she was not fully convinced up until she saw how he basically had no reaction at DJ saying all this in open court. David claimed he was innocent, and he did not testify in his own defense during trial. but he was convicted in December of 2003, and he was sentenced to life without parole for first-degree murder. DJ Wall, who testified against him, his friend, faced no charges related to the murder of Lynda McClelland. Amanda filed for divorce and moved to Indiana to be near her father and be away from David. Amanda said that David had watched her go through so much pain with her mother's disappearance, and all along he was the one who did it. Now, the family contends that Lynda would not have willingly had sex with her son-in-law, but the police say they don't know if the night of the murder was a one-time event or if it was an ongoing affair. The family feels that rather than an affair, Lynda possibly found out about David's burglary ring and was going to report him to police.
So that's the case of Lynda McClelland. I mean, it does have a resolution. It took 3 years to find out who did it, but it did get resolved. But I wanted to discuss a few things. DJ's testimony. Now, you and I know from our background in law enforcement that the police aren't just going to go arrest David based on DJ's story, right?
Well, they wouldn't, because DJ is what we call an unreliable witness. He himself is a criminal, and he has motive to turn in his buddy because he's getting a deal from the prosecution to do so. So the police are going to need something to corroborate DJ's story. They're going to have to see some physical evidence and not just his word. Now, he does take a big step in the right direction because he's able to tell them where her body is. That is a big piece of corroborating evidence. But they're going to need some other stuff too. And there wasn't a whole lot of information on forensics other than that initial search of the home and the autopsy. So we don't get any real indication as to what that evidence could be. It could be all kinds of stuff, though. It could be, anything that backs up his story. And as I said, this is me just giving examples. We don't know that any of this really happened, but if the night that the murder took place, there was surveillance footage of DJ and David buying garbage bags, well, that would be a piece of evidence, So they had to come up with some stuff like that to kind of back DJ's story.
Well, and I'm sure I don't know in this case, but they would have processed those garbage bags and tape and looked for fingerprints or DNA or hair because, we're in 2003 and 2004, so DNA was being used, so they could have had those type of things, but I could not find anything even on the court testimony other than the little bit that we did find. And I think they would also look at what reasons would DJ have to kill Lynda.
Yeah, I guess rape is always a possible motive, but we don't really know. Did DJ have any kind of prior history with Lynda? Did he even know Lynda prior to this day? Who knows?
Well, now, he was best friends with David, and they had been friends since childhood, and David and Amanda had been together since they were in high school. So I'm sure DJ knew Lynda, knew who she was in this small town, but I don't know how much
Close.
Involved. Yeah.
Right, like how close they were. Even if hey, that's my best buddy from high school's mom, how much interaction are you having with her regularly anyway? So I don't know. I guess it's always possible that she could have known about DJ's participation in the burglary ring, but we don't really have any information that suggests that.
Yeah, and, it was always pointed, well, DJ could have done it and blamed it on David as retaliation, and that is true. So that's what leads you to believe, and with him being convicted, that there was other evidence that put David there at the scene. And David would have more reasons to kill Lynda than DJ would. First of all, that sexual encounter with Lynda, it could have been rape. We don't know. He told DJ they'd been having an ongoing affair, which people want to think, oh my God, a mom having an affair with her son-in-law. It happens. Well, I'm not saying it did, but it does happen. But it also could have been rape or a one-time event.
Sure. But another thing that kind of jumps out at me about this is that by Amanda's own admission, her mother engages in sexually destructive behavior when her medicine is out of whack or she's not on her medicine, which kind of lends some credibility again when we're talking about backing up DJ's testimony. To me, that kind of points towards DJ telling the truth, because it could be that Lynda engaged in behavior she wouldn't normally have engaged in if her medicine was helping stabilize her mood like it should have. I would definitely say that sleeping with your daughter's husband is sexually destructive behavior.
Yeah, and I don't know about this, Lynda, the theory, and I understand families, and I understand families when they lose somebody, and how you come up with your own theories and you want to believe the best about that person that's deceased. But my question is, would Lynda have found out about this burglary ring? I mean, how would she have known any information about it? The only way I could think of that she could have known about it is if she had some type of involvement.
Sure.
And not saying she did. So that leads me to believe that it didn't have anything to do with the burglary ring.
Again, it's one of those situations that it seems like we kind of find ourselves going back to every week. The simplest explanation is the most plausible. And that, again, I understand that that's tough for the family. And I can't say definitively what happened. I don't think any of us can. So I hate to, cast Lynda in a poor light or anything. But I mean, it's pointing towards the fact that she had an affair with her son-in-law, which obviously is not a reason for her to die, but it may explain what led up to that event,
Well, I just don't know. It just seems like Lynda, her daughter, knowing that she's schizophrenic, has health issues. When she's not on her medicine, she hallucinates. Her just threatening, well, I'm going to tell my daughter that we've been having sex. I mean, David could easily say, well, I'm going to tell her that you're crazy and I don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know what more there might be there that we're not seeing. And that makes rape an even bigger possibility. But I don't know. It's just very odd. I mean, it's a very odd situation. A man having an affair with his mother-in-law and then killing her and getting a friend to bury the body. It's all an odd situation. And although it's terrible that it happened, I'm glad the family does have some resolve. But poor Amanda and those kids, I mean, she lost her mother and her husband did it, and now she lost a husband. I mean, that's a terrible place to be in.
It sure is. It sure is. And when she said that about, having all that animosity towards him and feeling, when she's going through this immense worry for her mother because her mother's missing and he's there the whole time knowing that he did it and allowing her to go through it and put this person that he, is supposed to love, that's his wife, putting her through that kind of emotional strain, outside of the fact of him killing her. It's a whole nother level to sit there and be a first person witness to the suffering of your wife. I don't know. It's just a strange but horrible situation. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's case. And as always, we'll see you next week. We would like to hear your thoughts on this and all of our cases. And as always, you can reach us by email at truecrimeoutloud@gmail.com. Facebook and Instagram at True Crime Out Loud. Out Loud is 2 words, not one, and Twitter at TC Out Loud.
Photos, links, and sources for this case can be found on our website at www.truecrimeoutloud.com.